to welcome our next speaker and our guest on our virtual stage, the beautiful, wonderful Carole Issa. Hey, Carole, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so very welcome. Now, Carole is the founder of Alifpreneur. She works with skilled creative talents who feel pretty much stuck, uninspired and unfulfilled in their 9-to-5 job. And Carole helps them turn their skills and expertise into a successful part-time or potentially full-time business. And she does this through her online training and coaching program called the Ultimate Entrepreneur Boot Camp. I love that. And so today Carole's going to be speaking on the topic of enabling the entrepreneur in you. That sounds incredible, Carole. Thank you so much. So I'd love to kick off the session here today on what was your purpose behind the creation of Alifpreneur. What was your driving force?
There are a lot of things actually that came together that were at the heart of creating Alifpreneur, and mainly it was something that got my attention when I was at school. So interestingly, we had our first history class and I wasn't very interested, to be honest. For me, it was like, ugh, the past. But for some reason, when the teacher started talking about a civilization, which was the Phoenicians, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. So it's a civilization that was roughly 4,000 years ago,
right.
Across the Mediterranean Sea, and they had very small cities across the sea. And in a way, like if they didn't have a resourceful mindset, everyone else would be stuck. But for them, it was like, no, actually, let's have a look at what's beyond the sea and see how is it that we can bring value to other civilizations around us.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So what they started to do, they got really, really good at building strong ships and really being great sailors. And they started studying the civilizations around them to see what is it that they needed from other countries or cities. And they started being like moving goods from one city to the other, depending on what different civilizations needed. And mainly most of their cities were located in the country that is called Lebanon today.
Right.
And they were at the heart as well of creating the first alphabet, which we're using today.
Right.
So Alif, which is Alifpreneur,
right.
Was actually more of a tribute to the civilization that actually got my attention because it had this entrepreneurial kick to it.
Yeah.
And for me, it's really this way of thinking, this resourceful way of using everything that you got to bring value to others. So
wow.
This is how it also, this is where it comes from
What
back
an
then.
incredible story. Sorry, I'm just going to blow my nose. I do apologize. What an incredible story. I love that you shared that with us, and it makes so much sense, doesn't it? Because clearly they had an innovative strategic mindset, didn't they? That entrepreneurial mindset of, okay, so how can we do it differently? And so you've taken that, you've embraced that and built it into this incredible, that's awesome. That's really exciting. That is cool. People are saying this is a very interesting story. Indeed. Thank you for sharing that. And so that was obviously then your driving force, I guess, around entrepreneurs and how they can then embrace what they have and how can they do it differently.
Yes, absolutely. And something else that I wanted to share is the meaning of the word Alif, which is the first letter of the alphabet, which is a bit of a sidetrack, but it's interesting as well. So, you know, the letter A that we use today, which looks like pretty much this.
Yep.
So it used to be that way. So, and what it was, it's the bull or the ox. So those are the horns and that's the head.
Oh, wow.
So today we're using another version of that same letter. So in other words, it's how is it that you can bring this alpha energy, like being a high performer, really bring the best out of yourself in everything that you do. So this as well is part of what is, because Aleph in Phoenician means the bull.
Yeah.
So this is where it comes from.
Oh, that really resonates with me. Power. That is good. I like that. Thanks for
Not
sharing.
as in a bully. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like
I do.
it's like
That's awesome. Thanks for that. And so now, one thing that I love, and I've learned so much from you over the years, because you and I have known each other now for some time. You did some work in the Middle East. Would it be okay if you shared some of those experiences with us? Like the challenges perhaps some people faced there with perhaps finding the courage to maybe start their business, and even the patterns you may have discovered in people in different cultures along the way. Would it be cool for you to share some of that with us?
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks.
It's interesting that you're mentioning this because I've been thinking about it a lot since I've started Alifpreneur. And what I started to find is that a lot of the differences that were coming up were more about my own way of seeing things. So I'll explain more. And I started to see more and more over time the similarities. So what I mean by this is when I used to go to train in the Middle East, I had this feeling that people were listening to me because I was coming from overseas.
Right.
And that they were interested and leaning into what I had to share because I was like, the person who's coming from overseas, bringing new ways of thinking and all of this. But then as I started to look into it from a different perspective, I started to realize that it's not this. It's actually the fact that they have the right attitude that they're bringing to the room.
Right.
And yes. So, it's all about really leaning in and being curious about what else am I going to learn here? What else I am not aware of? And I think if I were to think about perhaps the differences, if I may call them the differences, it's more about the way the environment shapes people.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I found out is that when someone has the right attitude or the resourceful attitude, to be more specific, no matter where you put them,
they're
going to actually make the most out of it. So in the Middle East, usually people are not very much supported by the government. They have to make it on their own and all of this. So it might come across as they're more resilient, they're more resourceful, they have more behavioral flexibility. But having said this, even here in Australia, they have been pretty tough challenges that people were going through, the ones that I coached and I worked with. And still, they brought the same attitude. Yes, it's a different environment, but then it's the same attitude that they're bringing into the game. And what might look like, oh, that's easy for me, can be hard for someone else. And that's what matters, because it's progress in their eyes, in their environment, in what they're going through. So I would say it's more over time, I started looking more at the similarities. And I feel that there are a lot of things that are like bringing those like-minded people together, which is mainly the curiosity to learn, to relearn and unlearn, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense, and it now shifts even my perspective around that, because it makes, it's interesting how you said when you first went into it, you had this perspective, this perception even, that it's because of my language, the way I speak differently, all of this great stuff. I'm from Australia. They're going to sort of buzz around me, like they do, because but it's not. And you're so right. And people come because they are so open to learning, and their mindset is so different. I really love that. Thank you for sharing that perspective and that pattern, even, because it makes a lot of sense even in our own businesses right now, who we attract. And the people who we surround ourselves with, are they sort of open to learning, or are they more closed mindset individuals?
Yes, absolutely. Spot on.
Wow, that is so cool. Thanks for sharing that. And so how does someone know? I know that you mentioned somewhere that, it's important for leaders, I guess, and you help people to up their game, to move from where they are, from their stuckness, I guess, and that closed mindset to, hey, you know what, let's give this a go. So how can people know that it's time? Is there an indicator, or is there,
It's very interesting that you're sharing this, and I love your question because it gets me to think actually even deeper now. Let me think. Okay. So, I mean, by and large, again, quick, like big generalization here. And it might not be like doing justice to everyone, but mostly people who come to me to work together, they're either saying, okay, it's ready to up my game because they are bored. So it's boredom that is going to be the main trigger. Or it's about a massive pain. Let's say, for example, someone lost their job, or someone is about to get a big like surgery, whatever, like something that is really painful. Or mom's got to take maternity leave and dad has to work it out, like how to make more money. And then it becomes out of pain where they have to move, like there is no other choice, that they need to up their game. It's not really a choice, it's you have to.
Right.
And this is mainly most people where they come from when they start, and this is the indicator of when it's time to up their game. And what I start to coach them on is having a look at how is it they're going to make it about wanting to grow anyway, and not waiting for the trigger or the pain that is usually something, either I'm tolerating something that is boring and then I can't take it anymore, which is another form of pain. Or I have to because we need to pay the, you know, like the bills at the end of the month, and I have to figure out a way in the meantime, in the next 6 months or year. So, and I start coaching them around how is it that you're going to keep wanting and choosing to grow anyway, regardless of what's going on. So you are always, like one of our greatest mentors shared once, his name is Joe Panya, I'm sure that you guys know him. He said, squeeze life before it squeezes you, or something along those lines. So yeah, so it's really about looking at how is it that you're going to propel yourself towards what's possible, the opportunities that are out there, as opposed to, oh my God, it's painful, I have to run away from pain. It's like looking ahead, looking at what's ahead, learning from the past, of course, but then really more getting like energized and excited about what's next. What's next? What am I going to grow into, as opposed to, oh, I have to do it because I'm bored, or because it's, you know, like I have to pay the bills at the end of the month.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, how you, now that you've broken it up into those different sort of categories, I suppose, Carole, in that when we're working from desperation, and actually Rebecca asked a really pertinent question here, which got me thinking too, does the pain block creativity? And, you know, when we're working from a space of, I guess, and I'll let you answer it, from desperation, there's blocks all the time, isn't there? Like we can't see, where we're sort of back to where we started. So I'll let you answer that. You know, does the pain block creativity in your experience?
I don't have a definite answer for this, and the only way I can answer it is what I have experienced myself. I mean, it's different for everyone, right? So for me right now, the most accurate version would be how I have lived it differently. So interestingly, like one of the things that I do as well as a hobby is that I play the piano, and I've been playing the piano since I was 6 years old. And before I came to Australia, I lived in Lebanon, and I'm Lebanese originally from there. And I lived throughout the whole civil war. And why am I bringing this up? Well, because whenever there was something that was really painful going on, so like say someone died that we know because of a bomb, or we lost a property, or someone lost their son that we knew, or something like really traumatizing events, I remember that it was my way out to externalize this pain was to actually compose music. And I would sit on my piano and come up with something new. And I realized over time that the only time I actually created something that really connected me with my emotions and that people were connecting with and loved was when I experienced pain. And I became all of a sudden creative.
Wow.
So this is how I experienced pain, connecting with my creativity. Having said this, interestingly, I've experienced the other way around as well, where pain was actually forcing me into connecting with my logic or left brain side, which is very much like trying to get things right and doing it like the perfect way, and making sure that I don't miss out and I don't fail. And then all of a sudden it became so robotic and structured and, very rigid. And there was no creativity. There was no soul to what I was about to create. So the idea is that as well, sometimes when I find myself, you know, when you get this idea when you're taking a shower or it's very early in the morning and you have the best ideas ever.
Oh,
That's
my space of creativity too.
So it's those moments where you wake up, you're fresh, your brain is not starting those interesting conversation. It has an opinion about everything.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, this is when you get the most creative and you get the best ideas. So which is part of why people meditate. And I've been recently being like really creating this discipline of meditation as well. And I'm experiencing this different side of creativity connected with no pain and really feeling that, you know, up there, okay, there are clouds, but then there's this blue sky, this whole thing about thoughts passing by, just passing by. And yes, I'm experiencing creativity as well. So Rebecca, I love your question.
Yeah, I do too. And what an incredible answer that was. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. So it's a bit like our meta programs, you know, moving away, moving towards, whether we're moving away from something because of the pain factor. We want to run away from it. And so we're almost forced to become creative and innovate and do something new. We move towards it. With whatever, and that's where we sort of start to structure our way through. So that's an interesting concept. Thanks so much for sharing that. And I too, I love your shower thing, because I think, I don't know how many other people, I know some people like the look. For me, the shower's a thing, you know. As soon as I race out, I get my book. I love that.
Yeah, before the idea goes away, like, write it down.
I'm always with a towel around me. So cool. I love that. Thank you. So I guess too, then, if what is it around in terms of our thinking, our business? How is it that we could, in terms of what you offer, is it Alfapreneur or Alifpreneur?
It's Alef, and the letter alpha is Greek, so it came from the Phoenician and it became alpha. So it's Alef initially.
Alifpreneur, yeah. So it's
fine. It doesn't matter.
Fantastic. So to expand a little bit, I guess, on what yes, the notepad in the bathroom. So someone was just saying, you mean you don't have a notepad in the bathroom? Stephen, I actually do. I have one everywhere.
Through proof.
I should show you the size of it one day. Okay, that's so cool. So is there anything that you can perhaps expand on, or if anyone has any questions that they would like to share with, or perhaps ask Carole around the mindset, around the Alfapreneur mindset, or perhaps, Carole, you'd like to share a little bit more about how you can help, I guess, or help develop that mindset too.
Yes. So initially, when I started Alifpreneur, it was very much around seeing how is it that the person can treat themselves as a business or their career as a business. And this is not my idea. I came across this idea when I read one of James Altucher blog posts. I'm not sure if you guys know who James Altucher is. He's an entrepreneur, a hedge fund manager, an investor, a writer, like you name it, a podcaster. Yeah. He's amazing. And this is one of the very interesting people that I follow, because it's through massive failures that he became who he is. So he's okay to fail. He's okay to be very vulnerable about it. And this is what he writes about all the time. He even inspired a gentleman, and I read his book, I think last year it was, to write a book that is called Love Yourself as if your life depends on it.
Oh, wow.
So you can see the depth of how far this man has come in his journey. So long story short, I came across a blog post of James Altucher, and he said, treat yourself and your career like as if it was a business. Mm. And the idea is that think about what are the talents that you have. How is it that they connect to your purpose? How is it that you are passionate or not about different things? So really be focused on this to find out what your talents are. How is it that you can become master at those? And how are you going to contribute to others and the greater good while discovering those as you move forward? So in a way, it's being responsible for the talents that we are born with, to expanding them and grow through them and really contribute to the greater good as a result of this. And as we do this, we are actually offering value to others. And in return, obviously, we're going to be taken care of. So, and at the same time, it's about attracting people to your mission so that they can start expressing themselves and perhaps have their own mission as well along the way. It doesn't have to be all about your mission. So, and discover their true purpose and develop their talents through this. So this was initially the idea of the mindset that I kept on talking about. And even if you go on my website now, you will see that there's a manifesto that talks about this.
Right.
So this is really what I keep teaching and coaching around with Alifpreneur in terms of the responsibility and the ownership of discovering what you're passionate about, how that you can contribute to the greater good, and of course, what people need. So this is how it works.
Wow. You know, you've asked some really great questions in that, because I think from my experience too, and yours and perhaps others here as well, often some people we meet, or even it could be ourselves, we're not used to answering those questions, and we don't even know that we have talents. And often we're conditioned to believe that we need to go to school to create talents. Sorry, I need to blow my nose again. This is terrible.
That's all right. I'll take a sip of water as well.
Yeah. But you know, it's so much more than that. And as you said, and I love what you said too, it's so valuable and so it's so much gold there, that we all do have something to contribute. We all do have experiences that we've learned from that perhaps no one else knows how to, and those experiences that we've learned from, by the way, are solutions to problems that people may have. And so someone like yourself, to be able to extract that from somebody, to even ask the question, you think, oh yeah, I do have talents. I was born with them. How do I find them? That's huge, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
And it's funny because it puts a lot of, some people get pressured by this. It's like, oh, I can't find my purpose yet. Like I can't. And then it's about as well realizing that that's okay.
Yeah.
It's about having the intention of looking for it, like really owning it. And then you might spend months, years without knowing exactly what your purpose is. But as long as you're making the effort to align yourself with your talents and really expressing yourself, having the courage to express yourself, the closer you're going to get to actually really formulate and really understand what your purpose really is. So not sitting there and waiting for it, you know, to fall from the sky, like to show up, like, you know, it's actively really looking for it, not like in a fun way, you know, like exploring, putting the explorer hat on and be like, hey, I'm going to go on an adventure and look for my purpose, see what it could be.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love that you I've got a couple of questions that I'd like to ask you as well from the audience too, but you've made some amazing points there, and we all do have talent. We're all good at something that someone else is not and wants to learn how to do. So I think that's really key. Thanks for that, Carole. I'm just going to go through now. Say asks, Carole, how does one deal with the fatigue of having to change by circumstance as much as the need to change for the sake of purpose? Great question, and thank you so very much for asking that. Would you like me to repeat that for you? Or
yeah, I'm just reading it.
Oh,
I'm just trying to make sure that I understand.
1202, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just as a to clarify here. So you mean that when you have to be off purpose, it creates fatigue. How do you deal with this fatigue when you know you are off purpose as opposed to on purpose? I'm just trying to understand the question here.
Yeah, so it's more in terms of the, you know, the conflict that comes in your mind because of, you know, the circumstance that you're thrown into. And you're forced to change, you know, which may not necessarily be something that you need to change for. And then you're also having a parallel process of, you know, having to change for the sake of purpose. So often in midlife, you know, you go through that where, you know, there is a need to change from within for the sake of aligning to your purpose. And you also face the challenge of having to, you know, you're forced to change because of the circumstance that you're thrown into. So how does one deal with the fatigue? Because it's a bipolar state. You're constantly having to struggle with both the worlds. And, you know, how do you make peace with that? And how do you, you know, deal with the fatigue?
Yes, I hear you. So I'm going to answer the best way I can, and hopefully this is going to be helpful. Thank you so much for your question, Sai. So if I'm understanding correctly, what you're sharing is that sometimes you are forced to go off purpose, and that creates some sort of tension in your life. So how is it that you deal with this? Usually what I tell people, like, it's a bit of a generalization again here, but it's like, find something, a project that you can start on the side of the life that you have to live. So let's say I'm going to give you an example. A lot of people come to me, they have to keep their 9-to-5 job. They're not a big fan of their 9-to-5 job. They feel stuck in their career. Like right now, for example, a lot of people are unable to move to another company, or let's say they were promised a raise and then no raises this year. You're lucky if you still have a job, and they're like, what do I do? So they're not in love with their job, so it's sort of off purpose. So the idea is that what I advise them to do, and I invite them to do, is to have a look at how is it that they can create something on the side that really deeply resonates with them. And then this is where they're going to recharge. This is where, yes, perhaps in a work environment, their batteries are depleted, if you were to talk about it from this perspective, metaphorically speaking. But then they go and recharge as they're working on this side project that lights them up, that they feel deeply connected with. So it's about really learning to manage this energy of how you recharge, and you give yourself the opportunity to recharge. You are creating this opportunity for yourself so that you can now go and do what has to be done and needs to be done, and that you don't necessarily resonate with. And it's just a phase. And through this, you are going to learn something new and grow on how is it that you're going to manage this balance between connecting deeply with something that you are actually recharging from, and bringing this energy to serve other things that you might not be like. We don't love everything that we do every day, right? Like there are a lot of things that we do and we don't feel like doing. So creating this balance between recharging, giving the energy, and knowing how to channel this energy. I trust this is helpful. Sai, does this answer your question?
Yes, more or less. Yeah. Yeah.
More or less.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Terrific.
I think it's to do also with the idea of fatigue, because of course, all of us are not very fortunate in terms of having to choose. We can't make choices. There's a lot of privilege around it. So the fatigue. I know you spoke about piano, playing piano in your case. So how do you deal with the fatigue, the decision making fatigue?
Yes, so fatigue is a bit of a general term. Thank you again for clarifying where specifically you needed help with. And it's about really looking at the source of fatigue. So you can start with the very fundamentals of what brings fatigue to the game. So are you sleeping well? Are you eating well? What types of food you are having? Are you drinking enough water? So already these things, the reason why I'm sharing this is because I went through this very recently, like 3 years ago, when I just had my son. It was my first, and it still is. So first time mom. And I was experiencing fatigue on an ongoing basis. And it was very much because my sleep wasn't going well. I couldn't have enough time to have good food, nutritious food. And it was like around the clock, 24/7. And this is where I started to really going, okay, let's go back to the fundamentals and see how is it that I can improve my quality of sleep. Is it meditating before going to bed? Is it making sure that I have some help so that someone can look after him while I have some time to sleep? Like really starting to find different tweaks, and every small change that creates progress is already amazing. Like something that you might get stuck in sometimes, which happened to me, is like, oh, this is not going to change much. Even if I get like a couple of hours per day to sleep, like what is going to change? I need to have food. And I started really to overwhelm myself with things that are still missing. What you want to have a look at what are the small progress that you can create right now with everything that you have to do, and start trying those out. Like, how can I get better quality of food if that's something you feel needs to be addressed? Or how can I get better quality sleep? Things like this. See what's hurting you the most, what's actually the most taking out energy from you, and see how's it you're going to hit it, on the head, like hit the nail on the head. Like, okay, how's it going to tackle this specifically, and create those little changes and progress as you move forward, those baby steps, and you will see how everything will start to change. Like really handhold yourself, parent yourself, and really look after yourself. You want to bring your curiosity and explorer's hat again on, hang on a minute, let's have a look at why is it that I'm feeling or experiencing fatigue? What is causing this fatigue? And how is it that I can create small changes to start moving in the other direction? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, right. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thanks, Sai. Thank you. And if you could pop yourself back on mute, please, Sai, that would be terrific. Thank you so much for answering that question for Sai, Carole. That was a very powerful answer you gave right there, in that not to become complacent with where we are, you know, and being cool with getting different results. And often when we're feeling that uneasiness, that misalignment, if it's even a word, I don't know, it is now, I guess, but when there's no alignment, suddenly you sort of start to feel this tug of war inside of you. That's where you need to put all the hats that you just mentioned into play and say, well, what can I do differently to get a different result? Would that be right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's about really, like I said, something that a lot of people experience, and myself as well, is those little voices inside my head that starts popping, especially when I'm fatigued or when I didn't have a good night's sleep. Like, it's party time for those voices. And it's like, yeah, we're in, it's our time. And then bringing your awareness to the fact that they're going to party now. And it's about me taking ownership and responsibility to say, okay, guys, thank you. Hang on a minute. I'm in charge now. I'm going to be in charge. No matter how exhausted I'm feeling, I'm going to create progress here, no matter how small it is.
I love that. It's almost like facilitating the conversations in your head, taking control and honing them in.
Like, hey, hang on. Wait.
I love that. Thank you so much, Carole. Well, this has been such a fun discussion. I've really loved this. And unfortunately, I'm really mindful of the time, and we need to bring our next guest speaker on.
Sure.
Thank you so much for sharing so much value here. One last question, if I may. How can people reach out to you? So in terms of helping people turn their skills into successful businesses, how can they tap into you and your resources?
Yes, so it's very easy. On my website, there are 3 different ways that you, depending on what you love. So there's a podcast called Leadership Activators. It's on the website, so you can listen to the different episodes where I'm interviewing leaders in their space on how is it that they think, what were the challenges they had, how they have overcome the challenges. So this is a cool one if you like this format. There is my newsletter, so where I share the best tools that I use with my clients. Then there's the blog as well. So my website is caroleissa.com. So my first name, last name.com. And then as you walk into the website, you'll be guided from there.
Beautiful. I've just popped it in the chat, caroleissa.com. Beautiful.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you so much. And again, all of Carole's details and attachments will be included in the email that will be sent out to you, to all who attended today later on this afternoon. So that's terrific. Carole, thank you. I've had so much fun, and I trust you have too. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much, Alex.
No worries. And I thank you. And I look forward to connecting with you off this forum.
Same here.
Thanks, Carole. Cheers.
Thank you.